Welcome back to BrilliantFIT the Podcast. My name's Jay and I'm the creative producer. This is where we talk about all things BrilliantFIT and what it's like to work in today's modern day business climate. So whether you're working, managing or leading, we tackle it from all perspectives. So sit back, get comfy and let's see what today's episode has in store. Good to be here, mate.
Yeah, it is.
It's been a minute since we've done this.
It's been a while.
It has. What categories have you got for us for today's episode?
Today's episode, I want to talk about maybe a different take on change.
Change? Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of change, obviously, in our work environments that we're going through at the moment, whether it's anything from the hybrid working environment, but just want to take a different maybe take on change itself.
Okay.
And we've kind of made some, in my view, we've made quite a few kind of broad assumptions around change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it'd be good to unpick it, and from a, if you're actually thinking about leading change or involved in change, what are the things that you can actually influence as part of the process?
Yeah.
And a few key maybe tips around some of those things.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Where did you want to approach it from?
So for me, it's really about understanding the impact of change.
Okay.
In relation to people. My experience and my background is, I've had over 30 odd years experience in both the corporate and private sector consulting and running companies.
Yeah.
From, energy companies to technology companies to a whole range of different things. So I've been around a bit. I'm not exactly 21 anymore.
No,
unfortunately.
You've tried a few flavours.
I've tried a few flavours of different things, yeah. And it's really interesting looking at that because, some people see the impact of change quite dramatically if they're simply, they're in a team environment, and one or two members goes out of the team and the change, happens for a whole variety of reasons.
Yeah.
But the impact is pretty significant.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the dynamics can change dramatically with even just moving one or two people out or bringing new people in, changing roles, people stepping up into leadership, brings a different style. So change impacts at all different levels in an organisation.
It's very true. You can have one person leave in some circumstances and it's still very much the same team that functions essentially the same and, with a minor difference.
Yeah.
But like you said, other times you can take one player out and it literally is a whole new team, has to function in a whole new way, and for it to evolve or to continue to succeed.
Yeah, and it's important to recognise, and we'll get into a couple of things around how to look at that, but change in a broader context. Maybe it's a divisional change. Maybe it's a different focus. Maybe it's it's a takeover. It's an integration of two companies, much bigger scale.
Yeah.
That you're talking about, or maybe it's merging two companies.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And when you're looking at those, and I've had a bit of experience in merging two large companies and bringing together and the dynamic of change that creates, and that's obviously at a mass scale.
Yes, absolutely.
You've also got other forms of change around technology, and I want to do a podcast around the impact of people and technology.
Okay, cool.
So that'll be coming up shortly as well.
Awesome.
So there's lots of different ways that change impacts organisations, and sometimes just simply the leaders changing at the top can make a dramatic impact to the way the organisation actually functions.
Yeah.
In what it does and how it does it. So change comes in many different forms, right? You've heard of the statement, people don't like change.
Yes.
Well, like most things, it's got an element of truth to it.
Yeah.
But it's not the entire truth, in my view.
Yeah.
So if you think about, who we are as human beings, we're formed, we come out of the womb, approximately 12 inches long, right? No hair, and we're constantly growing and changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now I've got two beautiful little grandkids.
Yeah.
And it just amazes me to watch them just every day having new experiences. and seeing something for the first time, and their eyes pop open, and
Yeah.
they grow and they develop and they integrate and they're working. So, as human beings, we're designed for constant change. So there's this concept that we don't like change, and I understand where it's coming from, because there are certain parts of our talent profile and our personality, and some of us are stronger in those traits than others, where we do like to lock in things.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And it's really important to us, and we get our comfort and our sense of security out of that. That's another whole podcast in itself.
Yeah, that's true.
Our insecurities and that kind of stuff. But the focus is, if we think about it, that we're designed for change.
Yeah.
Every aspect of our life, we go through periods, our careers change. We go through our teenage years, get a career in the first place, maybe change it, and we're saying, we could have up to 7 careers at different times.
If not more.
If not more, right? So, and then we obviously go through our middle ages and then to elderly selves.
Yes.
Right? And that's a change again. So I look at it quite differently. But what I do understand is that element that we often fixate on when we get in a comfortable space. We want to lock it in. Right? And it's not so much that we don't like change. We don't like uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you're a change practitioner or someone involved in creating significant change in an organisation, it's really important to actually reduce the level of uncertainty.
Right.
Because the change might be necessary, right, in what you're doing. But if we can reduce the level of uncertainty around it, right, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
On the people that's actually being impacted.
Yeah.
In the process.
Because you will have a certain number that are naturally more gung-ho and almost like change. They like
they do. There's a whole bunch of people who love change.
Mix things up. But then, as you said, especially when you're working with an entire organisation, and if it's a change that affects a large number of people, you're going to have a very, very large number of people that do feel that uncertainty and don't like it on a large scale. And so managing that across a mass of people is really, really important, obviously, to A, for success, and also B, just to, I think, manage expectations along the ride.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect is when we bring out change sometimes in organisations, as a leadership, you think, well, we just need to change this aspect, right? And it might be 10%, it might be 25% of the organisation is going through a restructure or some kind of reformation in some way, or transformation, as the case may be. Okay. So as a leadership, we often forget that when you announce something like that, that the entire organisation is actually impacted. Because the questions easily come up, well, if that's happening in this area, who's next?
Right. Okay, yeah.
Or how am I going to be impacted? I'm sitting way over here.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the actual transformation or the change that might be happening.
Right.
But I've got a whole lot of questions.
Yeah.
And so it impacts the entire organisation, and sometimes as leaders we forget that.
Yeah,
right? And
true.
we focus on just trying to embed the change that we want in a particular.
What do you feel like leaders are focusing on when they may forget about how many people it impacts?
Well, I think they're focusing on, getting stuff done, right? Getting the vision clear, focus, whatever transformation needs to take place in that part of the organisation, they focus on it.
Right.
And you put structures and plans in place, and you can resource it, and you move it through, and you do what you need to do to make that change.
Right.
But it's really the forgetting aspect is just realising that the broader organisation is always impacted in a change process.
Very true, yeah.
And so it's so important when we're actually doing that to recognise that change impacts everyone.
Yeah. And so next, I guess, what is the advice you would have for those who are looking at a change in their organisation on a large scale?
Yeah, there's probably a few things that I'd think about. One that rings really true for me is communicate, right?
Right.
You can't reinforce that enough.
Yeah, okay.
Is that people process in lots of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some people hear by the stories you tell. Some people are into the details. I don't want to hear the story, just give me the details. What's going to change? How's it going to change? What are the impacts? And in many cases in change process, you don't actually know all the facts.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So it's a process of discovery.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you may frame things up, you may have a strategy, you may implement it, but all aspects of how things are going to change will unravel as the change process happens, right? In what you do. And people have got to come together and formulate that together sometimes. And that's why you have project teams, and that's why you bring things together, right?
Absolutely.
But communicating what you're going to do, communicating how you're going to do it, right? Regularly following up with the different forms of communication. So one aspect of change that I was involved in, a change of integrating companies when they came together, we actually, a principle that we formed is we actually went away, took the whole team away that was involved in that process. And it was actually a really fundamental way of looking at things. And we actually said, well, what is the experience we want people to have in 6 months' time?
Okay.
What do we want them to actually say, right, about the process they've been through over the last 6 months?
Right.
Right? What do we want them to feel?
So you're really imagining them getting to a level where they can rave about it.
Well, it's not so much getting to a level of rave about it, but we actually started picturing what we thought was a brilliant change process.
Okay.
Right? So if it was an ideal world, what would that look like?
Right.
Right? How would we want them to have responded, basically, in what we're doing? And so we formulated that, we envisioned that, we wrote it all down, we made it into a basically charter.
Okay.
And it was one of the most powerful things we did, because in difficult decisions as we were going through, it was a 6 to 12 months process of integrating these companies. And the other key thing to remember on change, if you haven't made really significant process in your change process within 6 months, it effectively is not going to happen.
Okay.
So there's quite a bit of research from around the world of change projects.
Right.
So the first kind of 100 days, 180 days are absolutely critical to changing processes, to changing culture, to actually getting stuff done.
Wow.
If you leave it too long, right? I heard of a change process going over 2 years of two companies trying to merge, and the resulting outcome is just horrible.
Yeah, disaster.
Because you get people very quickly reverting.
Yeah.
Right, there's not the integration you naturally get.
Right.
You get a lot of resistance over time.
Yeah.
And you get often separate cultures forming.
Right.
Or staying, as the case may be, where you want to create one. And so that's a really important thing to recognise. But going back to this charter, when we formed a charter, and you have to make difficult calls as you're going through a change process.
Yeah.
Right? When you're doing that, you can always reference the charter. So hang on a minute. This decision we're going to make, is it actually going to meet what we set out to meet?
Yeah, okay.
Another point to recognise when we're doing it is if we don't communicate well and regularly, people will always fill in the void. Mm-hmm. Right? We've got a hugely curious, creative minds. Maybe we don't like the change, so we draw up images of our past experiences. We do all kinds of wonderful, creative ways of filling a void with a lack of true information.
Yeah, okay.
And when you add Chinese whispers to that process, it just multiplies into,
A
stories
breakdown of
that
information.
you wouldn't believe are made up about what's actually going to happen. And I've seen many of them, and I go, "Wow, how on earth did you come to that view?"
Yeah.
Oh, well, so-and-so told me this was happening, and so-and-so told me that happening. And you talk to that so-and-so person, right, and they go, "Oh, no, I was just thinking that might be what it might be."
Yeah, okay.
And so it easily gets out of the zone that you're after. Another important point here is that we did is use lots of different mediums. Some people like stories, as I was saying. Some people like facts. So yes, your Q&As are important. Your town halls are important. Right? Having the opportunity to speak to people at various times. Right? Having one-to-ones with different key people, answering questions and sharing them. All of those things in multiple different ways are important in your communication channels that you provide for people, because people feel a lot more comfortable using one versus the other.
Yeah.
Right, and having a team to look at that is important.
Okay, so having options just creates a greater sense of unity.
Yeah. And the other thing I've learnt is part of the process, and now in BrilliantFIT, we've got the opportunity to really understand the data behind change, right, where we didn't in the past. And some of the insights that come out of the BrilliantFIT process is very much around understanding people's comfort with change.
Right.
Right? Because we all can go through change, but what's our level of comfort in engaging with change? Right? So what's our resistance levels, if you like? And those are made up of insights into things like, what's our risk appetite? Mm-hmm. Right? Are we open to risk? Are we open to opportunity or not? How do we see change? Do we see it as an opportunity for good? Do we see it as an opportunity of, whoa, this is going to change everything around about me?
True. And one of the scales is not just it's not necessarily do we like it or do we not like it. It's our comfort in dealing with it.
Right. Because when you know change and you know what it's like, you can get used to it.
Exactly.
Right? We all do.
Yeah.
All the time. The road rules change. We have to take a while to get used to them.
Right.
Okay. I'm a classic with when they change the speed zones on me. Right.
It bothers
I thought,
you.
hang on a minute. That used to be 300 metres back there.
Yeah.
Right. And now you've extended it way out.
I got to drive slower for longer.
Exactly. Right. And so, your desire you drive an ambitious impact change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Quite a lot.
Yeah.
So you're focused and you drive and you go, hang on a minute, is this impact and is this change going to impact what I want to achieve?
Right.
Right. I might have a whole set of goals and now you're moving the goalposts on me.
Do you feel like a large part of it is impacted by perspective?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And perspective is made up of a bunch of things, right? And including our past experiences.
Yeah. Right. I was going to say, so with the road signs as your example, you're immediately thinking, I used to be able to do this, now I can't. So it's just straight away, that's frustrating.
Right.
Whereas as opposed to it in the bigger picture, it's like 300 metres extra of maybe doing 60 instead of 80.
Right.
It's like, what's that really going to change?
Yeah.
But your experience has entirely shaped how you responded to that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So your drive, your direction, you want to be in control of stuff, you want to achieve your goals, you want to do things, you want to get, you might have to, if there's a series of these things, leave 5 minutes early.
Yeah.
On your trips, and you might be a person who's a just-in-time person.
Yeah.
Right, which is often me when I get on a plane.
Yeah.
Right. I'm getting slightly better, but I tend to be, to get to the...
Leave the least amount of time
yes,
possible.
Correct.
Because you don't want to wait.
When you're last on a plane, it is a little embarrassing, but you try to maximise the time you have in doing whatever you're doing.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, in what you do.
And you're a busy man, so you're trying to make
you're trying to maximise the day.
Create a lot in small windows.
Yeah, you are. The other thing that impacts change is your obviously curiosity, your innovation.
True.
Where you get your innovation from. Are you someone who goes to past experiences, right? And if you're someone who's that, change often is not. You're not particularly open to it.
Yeah.
Right? Because
you're quite content with what you know.
You're content with what you know it well, you're being really effective and efficient in it.
Yeah.
Someone says, hang on, we're now going to change all that. Right? And
like,
we go, whoa,
why?
If it's not broken, why do you want to try and fix it?
Exactly.
Right? And the confidence level and their ability to fix it right, is not high. And so we often, and that's where sometimes the real intransigence comes and goes, well, they might be wanting me to do that, but, I'm just going to go lock down and do my stuff.
True, yeah.
Right? And that's where you get a lot of inefficiencies forming if we don't communicate well.
Yeah.
And communicate the vision, communicate the why are we doing things.
Yeah.
They're really important.
Okay.
Because people think back and go, but why are we doing this? Why do we need to? What's the bigger picture? What's the context here? And so if we get caught up in the process, we miss the fundamentals of how do we engage people, which is often through those kind of questioning and Q&As and working with people to help them understand.
Yeah.
To get them on board to take the organisation where it needs to go.
Okay.
Because whatever you're doing now may not be where you need to go to.
Yeah.
To be successful in the next 5 years.
Very true.
And that's an important thing. So change is a really interesting thing for me. I've been in many different organisations, working in it as an executive, leading organisations, but also consulting back too.
Yeah, okay.
In the last 10 plus years.
Right, you've had that flipped perspective.
Helping organisations just walk through different elements of change. And what are you doing? And then there's a whole different concept of, being the leader of the change process.
Right.
What does that look like?
Yep.
And how you become a great leader. And we'll probably do a podcast around that at some point in time as well. So all those dynamics around change, but we now have data, right? We now have data to understand people. And imagine having that data right across your organisation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Do you have any anecdotes, recent or old, of key, significant differences of situations that you've used the BrilliantFIT data, say in a real world example with one of your clients?
Yeah, so looking at people going through, one of our clients has recently gone through a whole process of changing not as much structure as the way they do things in processes and things.
Right.
And it's been interesting talking with the leaders and getting them to focus on those aspects within the BrilliantFIT process around the data that says, where is the openness to change?
Yeah.
And of course, their immediate thing was, I actually didn't think about that, right? I didn't think about using that insight into how we'd process. And so helping the leaders walk through and just said, okay, let's review your team dynamics. Let's review the team data and see where different aspects or different members of the team sit in that zone. What is their appetite for change, their openness to change, and their comfort with it.
And it's showing them this is probably why you may be getting more kickback than you anticipated because of, these 4 people and their preferences.
Right. And it was actually reinforcing to the leaders because, I do have to spend a lot more time with those 3 or 4 people.
Right.
Right. And I said, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Right? Here's the reason. This is what the data's telling you.
Yeah, true.
Right. So you can preempt that and get a lot more successful. And I said, these people over here, you're not likely to need to spend time with. As long as you get the why we're changing right, right, you're not likely to need a lot of time to spend with them. Right? Okay. And they go, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I didn't realise this was all here in the data. I go, yeah, it is. Right. So think about that as a leader of teams.
Yeah.
Right. But also think as a leader of an organisation. Yeah. If you've got that data right across, your effectiveness of your resources and where you can deploy them is a whole lot more effective if you know what people need.
Yeah, wow.
To move through a change process.
There you go.
So some food for thought there.
Absolutely.
On looking at change in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
So I hope that's been helpful.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that's a ripper topic to cover, so thank you.
Pleasure. We'll catch up next time.
Awesome. We'll see you in the next episode.
Okay. Cheers, Jay.
Cheers, man.